What's up, cinephiles? Welcome to our part 2 review of Pista ng Pelikulang Pilipino 2020. The festival is still running up to December 13, 2020. Head over to fdcpchannel.ph for the subscription plans and the movie screening dates. Now, I did a first part review for the movie Sila Sila, Metamorphosis, and He Who Is Without a Sin. So guys, check that out. Before we begin our review, why don't you guys do us a favor and hit that like button and subscribe for weekly reviews of movies, TV shows, and video games. Phil, ano yung first movie natin?
Ang ating first movie ay ang Kintsugi, directed by Lawrence Fajardo. At ito ay tungkol sa isang overseas Filipino worker na si Dante, played by JC Santos, kung saan siya nagtatrabaho sa isang pottery factory sa Japan. At dito ay na-inlove siya kay Haruwe, played by Hiromi Nishiuchi, ang tagapagmana ng pottery factory na ito.
I think the most commendable here yung visual aesthetics. Very Japanese. Whenever we see films about fusing two cultures, dun talaga ako na-excite. So, we have here Filipino and the Japanese culture, and I like that the film also made an attempt to show how the pottery business works on the Japanese side, where it's growing, and then the Philippines, medyo matumal. Anyway, so we have these two characters. Both of them have their own struggles, and there's a central theme or message about embracing broken, about finding beauty in broken things. That movie tries to unravel in the character journey of these respective characters. I think somehow in the end, I was surprised that it actually went against the positivity of message that the movie is fighting for. So I was surprised. So I don't know how's that going to sit with most of the audiences. Personally, I find it underwhelming. But in terms of the performances, JC, of course, no surprise there. He's always good. He's always almost typecast in playing this charming but bit of a jerk character. Then we also have Hiromi. With her naman, it's about fighting the backward beliefs of Japan when it comes to marriage. Individually, their stories are affecting, but I was just looking for more of the chemistry because in the end, this is a romance story that I felt like I needed to root these characters, and throughout the film, I was kind of indifferent, but you know, most of it I did enjoy the tone and also the inclusion of the Palmos as the best friend. I always find him playing this kind of roles. He's also the one in Sila Sila, then Akin ang Corona, and I think he brings life. I very much like the banter of JC and Palmos here. Their relationship seems very authentic, and I guess for the rest of the Japanese characters, they're also good.
Actually, nag-agree ako sa'yo na medyo naging underwhelming siya, but also nag-agree ako na the film's biggest strength is yung kanyang aesthetic. This movie is just really good to look at, very pleasing, maganda yung direction niya, and it also has great themes about family tradition or yung responsibility mo sa family mo. You can see that for both characters ni Haruwe at ni Dante, and also yun nga, Kintsugi, meaning ng Kintsugi is to repair. These are two broken people, and them finding each other, they are trying to repair those brokenness. I agree. Individually, yung kanilang mga stories, it's quite affecting really, pero yung mismong central relationship na yun ay sobrang kulang. We only get really mga montage nung kanilang mga pagkikilig-kiligan. There's not really much conversation in the end, kaya siguro tayo na underwhelmed dito sa movie na to is because hindi tayo na-attach to them as a couple, but I can say na-attach tayo sa kanila as individuals, pero yung central relationship just didn't work. So when it eventually came to the point na sinasabi mo nga na it went against the message of the movie, ay hindi masyadong naging impactful dahil nga hindi ka invested sa kanilang dalawa as a couple. So yun, medyo bummer lang, and I guess baka medyo unpopular opinion ito, pero I didn't quite thought na yung acting was top notch. I actually thought na medyo bland, and I guess that has something to do with yung language barrier kasi they can't really get a free-flowing script. I guess for the part of the Japanese, they have to talk in English, which they're not really much English speakers really, the Japanese, and on the part of the Filipinos, they have to speak Japanese. So wala dito masyadong free-flowing flowing banter. So in the process, I think nagsasuffer yung acting. This is a really, really well-directed film and it's very pleasing to look at. But again, yun nga, nabanggit ko yung mga issues ko regarding dun sa central romance, and I'm going to give this movie a 3 out of 5 stars.
Now that you mentioned the language barrier, I think that's the one that's really impending the chemistry between the two leads here. And I was really finding for the sexual tension because we mostly get this montage of them trying to get to know each other. I think the movie could have taken it up a notch. Maybe find a way to clash these two cultures more effectively in terms of the banter of the dialogue. I'm also giving this movie a 3 out of 5. Okay, the next movie is Cleaners, the Q Cinema 2019 Best Picture, directed by Glenn Barit. This is the story of high schoolers set in 2008, and it's about them trying to face their problems when they realize that the real world is not as ideal and it's actually superficial and corrupted than they actually were led to believe. So Phil, I know you love this movie.
Yeah.
We both love this.
I love this movie so much, Kevin. First off, I thought that this movie is a really, really great love letter to high school. And masasabi ko talaga na isa sa mga rason kung bakit sobrang in love ako sa movie na to is ang setting niya is nung high school tayo. I think yung movie was set in 2008. Ang batch natin is 2009, so close enough. Talagang nakaka-relate tayo dun sa mga emo stage na mga classmates mo, mga performances ng buwan ng wika. Mga panahon naman natin, wala pa tayong mga cellphones masyado. So yung mga pagmumotor-motor lang, paggagala. I really enjoy this movie, Kevin, because everything that happens here, I felt like napaka-authentic na high school experience nung napanood ko. During those first parts, ay talagang thoroughly entertained ako because this movie is mga snippets, mga certain stories, not necessarily one whole story for the entire film. At yung mga first few ay medyo comedy, pero habang tumatagal yung movie, yung mga certain stories na pinapakita nila ay paseryoso ng paseryoso. And it happens para dito sa mga young people na to. At ang pinaka-effective dito is yung coming of age story ng isang character dito who realized that there's so much darkness dito sa mundo na to. There's so much corruption. Kung hindi mo lalabanan yun sa sarili mo is you'll end up na magiging ganun ka din. Yung final scene nito, for some reason, really brightened up my mood for the rest of the night after ko mapanood itong movie na to. I love this movie so much.
Yeah, definitely. Yung final scene, that's a powerful cathartic moment. Then I said to myself, wow, this movie really is a powerful mood piece. Like, it takes all those experiences that we had, those experiences that we felt like we've already buried in our subconscious that affected us in more ways than we could imagine up to now, and to bring that in, that capturing this milieu so perfectly. And also, I'm not going to say that this movie is also just strong because of the nostalgia factor. It's also worth noting here the filmmaking style. You know, this is not the first time that I've encountered a work of Glenn Barit. I've seen his short films, Aliens Ata and Nangungupahan, and he always has this unique approach when it comes to filmmaking. And in here, I don't know if you're aware, but what they did is they shot the movie like a normal movie you would do, and then they took some frames, printed those frames, then photocopied those frames, then colored them personally with highlighters, then assembled them back together into one film. So that gimmick is really awesome, but you know, it's not just a gimmick, it's very vital to the storytelling here because the whole experience is like reminiscing a memory. And when you look back at your high school memories, they don't tend to be exact, they tend to be foggy. This one works as a memoir. In a way, it's also a short film. It's like an anthology. And normally when it comes to an anthology, I get mixed. Not every segment works for me, but in here I really enjoyed every single one of them. The problems here are getting more serious as the film progressed, and I love that the movie at the end didn't trivialize any of those feelings. This one is such an eye-opener for me because now as an adult, you know, when I tend to look at the problems of the younger people, I tend to invalidate them as petty, but you know, when we are at that age, we tend to look at those problems like nasa atin na umiikot yung buong mundo. And I really felt those moments that they're feeling, those angst. And I guess the most effective storyline here for me is also the last one, because it's about youth and their vigor, optimism to change the world. And then you get disappointed that sometimes you find those imperfections within your family unit. That's really heartbreaking. And you know, as a whole, it just sends an inspiring message that this batch of cleaners will eventually be the next generation to clean up the mess of the world. So yeah, it's really uplifting. I'm gonna give this one a perfect 5 out of 5.
I'm glad na nabanggit mo yung filmmaking style na to because yeah, it's very very unique. Actually, wala ako nabasa about how they made this film, pero yung style nito, I already thought na medyo ganun yung ginawa nila, na kinulayan nila frame by frame. And just think about the effort put into a full-length feature film. I think yung pinakaunang colored films in general ay ganun yung ginagawa, talagang kinukulayan nila frame by frame, and I guess they went old school with this. Meron dito nga palang particular scene bago ako mag-conclude na talagang napangiwi ako tungkol sa gunting, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. Yung mga asaran dito feels very authentic high school. It kind of made me remembered how hopeful I was during high school, how much energy I had, and how much I didn't know yet about the world. I'm also giving this a perfect score, a 5 out of 5 stars. Ang next movie natin ay Batch 81, directed by Mike De Leon. And this movie stars Mark Hill as Sid Lucero. Isa siya sa 7 neophytes na looking to get into a fraternity. So, itong movie na to is basically mapapanood natin through the eyes of these neophytes yung process ng hazing to get into a fraternity at yung mga justifications on why they want to get into the fraternity. Kevin, this is a very old movie. This is a classic.
Yeah.
This was made in 1982. What can you say about this film?
I love that this is the first Filipino restored movie that we're reviewing in this channel, and wow, it's very timely. That is the test of time when you play a classic movie and if it feels resonant up to now. Anyway, this movie is set on the time of the Marcos dictatorship, so in a way that fraternity really symbolizes the fascism. The movie is not very subtle about it. It's a big cautionary tale about the dangers of manipulation, of succumbing into groupthink. Actually, while watching the movie, I was on the edge of being convinced that this fraternity can actually bring something good into them. Ganon siya ka-convincing, because when you hear these conversations among these neophytes, and when you realize that their masters are just actually people, the status are all attainable, and these people are not really necessarily trapped, that they are just really submitting themselves to power because of the peer pressure, because of the promise of the social status and the security that they're going to have. It's actually frightening to see them justify all the pain that they're receiving, all the suffering that they get, that eventually they will also inflict upon to others. Mark Hill here is really amazing as an anti-hero. He's really interesting here. You can see in his delivery that he is a conflicted character from the beginning, and I just love his arc. It's a very gripping study of the cycle of machismo that keeps on circling. The filmmaking style here, I really love. I think the camera work is excellent. I also love that there's a scene here involving a stage performance, and in a way it kind of works as an irony, like these characters are pretending to have fun, like it's all a facade, but you know, inside those fraternities, that's where all the horror happens.
I want to say na hindi ako naging member ng any fraternity, but I know a lot of people who are, and kinwento talaga nila sa akin in detail yung mga pinagdaanan nila, and that is why sobra akong na-amuse sa panonood nitong Batch 81. Frighteningly, yung mga iba pang kinikwento sa akin in person ay actually mas nakakatakot pa sa pinakita ng movie na to. But first off, I want to also admit na besides mga movie ni FPJ tsaka ni Dolphy, wala na akong mga lumang Filipino films na pinanood, yung mga tipong 80s, 70s, or yung talaga mga old school. So, very limited lang yung alam ko sa history ng Philippine cinema, to be honest. So, I was surprised how much I enjoyed this movie. I am incredibly surprised na merong mga ganitong klaseng Filipino movie way back then, na merong mga ganitong kaseryosong mga tema at ganitong mga kagagaling na performances, ganitong kagaling na directing. I agree dun sa sinabi mo na it also shows yung cycle nga, yung cycle of machismo. Eventually, these neophytes are going to become the masters, and the masters will do it to the next batch of neophytes, and it just goes on and on and on. Itong movie na to is also portrayal of toxic masculinity. Minsan iisipin mo is it necessary really yung mga pinapagawa sa'yo na yun? Will it add value to you as a member kapag member ka na nila? Or is it just etong mga masters na to na gumagante sa mga neophytes because eto rin yung mga pinarana sa kanila ng mga masters na yon? That is just something na talagang thought-provoking. You're gonna think na, is everything going to be worth it in the end sa lahat ng pinagdadaanin nila para dun sa kanilang mga gina-justify na benefits when they enter into fraternities, which still happens up to this day. This is just a solid movie. This is just a classic. I loved it so much. I guess isa ito sa mga paborito ko ng Filipino films ngayon because it was made in 1982, and again, wala akong masyadong background sa Philippine cinema. So, I am just so happy na na-discover ko itong movie na to from Philippine cinema's past. I am going to give this a perfect 5 out of 5.
Definitely a masterpiece for me. I'm also giving this a 5 out of 5. I just think this movie is a microcosm of the fascism that really works on this small scale, but you know, it's very reflective of the society back then. I'm not sure if buhay pa yung mga fraternities up to now. Siguro naman medyo lilo sila ngayong pandemic season, but I think this one
they are.
I really hope someday this movie will be irrelevant on a literal sense na hindi na uso yung mga fraternities, and this just be a cautionary tale na, look, if you went this route again, this is what's going to happen to you. So yeah,
it's not that we are entirely against fraternities because we know na merong mga benefits sa mga brotherhood nito. It's just that personally, I am against the violence that comes with it.
The hazing,
and that's what we're saying, but not necessarily against all fraternities. Also, kung member ka ng fraternity, you should watch this movie. It's amazing. Ang favorite character ko dito ay si Master Vince. He is just such a cool guy. Parang napaka-cool niya. And I guess that's it for our review nung tatlong films from PPP 2020. I highly suggest sa lahat ng Pilipino dyan na suportahan natin mga Filipino films. Hanggang December 13 pa to. So, mag-sign up na kayo. There are a lot of movies now very, very worth watching. Marami magandang Filipino films. So, sign up. So, again, if you like this video, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel.
Also, let us know what you think in the comment sections down below. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. Until then, see you on the next one.
Bye-bye!